Hey guys, it's Ray here. Welcome to Living Pieces. So today's episode doesn't really have a structure. However, there's been something that's been on my mind, a thought, if you will. And so on today's episode, I essentially want to explore that thought. It's going to be more of a philosophical nature, more of a philosophical episode today. So some parts of it will feel a bit like I'm rambling and won't really make sense. However, stick with me because I think there are some things that we need to explore and maybe think about and delve into a little bit deeper. So definitely stick with me and I hope you enjoy this episode. So, what I'm going to be talking about today comes from a video that I actually watched recently. The video was basically talking about programmings and how we are all part of different programmings. And it also, the person speaking did a comparison to the Matrix and talked about, as in the Matrix movie, and talked about how when the red pill was taken, the Neo was ejected from the Matrix, and he basically like woke up, and as soon as he did that, he was released from all the programmings. And so this person was basically talking about how essentially we don't wake up all at once from our programmings. We actually release and let go of them one by one until we're free and until we are basically until we're basically enlightened, right? So essentially that got me thinking, and it got me thinking about the programmings and the programmings that we're involved with and things like that. And they mentioned a few that they talked about, how we can be programmed into, like, there's like hard programming. So like religion being one, or social status and like class and like, wealth and just different things. Into also like how we view ourselves in terms of education, if you're more educated than one person, or things like that. Our environment where we live, our house, our material things, what we own, all of these things can be programmings that we're involved with, feeling like we need to have all of these things to be of worth, or to be a somebody, basically, right? And how when we actually start to wake up, we start to remove ourselves slowly from these programmings one by one, and it's not a hard reset, or at least not for everybody. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, and even if the hard reset was to happen, there are some things that would still creep up, some things that maybe wasn't removed the first time round, and so we still need to take time to remove ourselves from these programmings. And then the creator then also went on to talk about how after these hard programmings, there are also the soft programmings. And the soft programmings also do the same things in terms of making us feel like we are either better than others or has something to do with our emotions. And they spoke about how with the soft programmings are soft because we don't even realize that we're part of these programmings. And what those look like can be, okay, now that I've woken up and I'm no longer, let's say, part of a religion, the fact that you're no longer part of a religion may make you feel like you are better than those who are still part of that religion, for example, right? So now that's a soft programming that's just creeped up to make you think that because you're awakened, you're now better than others. And that's actually not the case. And so it was just this look between the hard programming and the soft programming and things like that. And then that got me thinking in general about programmings. And so I was pondering on it, and I realized that what they were saying was that essentially we remove ourselves from these programmings, and it got me to think that, okay, so if we remove ourselves from these programmings, what actually happens afterwards? Like, enlightenment essentially is like this idea that we're not part of anything, we are everything and nothing all at once. We are part of this and not part of this all at once, so we are detached, essentially we are free. And so that's the idea of an enlightenment. At least that's the way I understand it. And so it got me thinking that actually, when we think about it, we are always part of a program. I personally don't think that we can actually ever leave a program. Now, this is just theoretical. I could be wrong. But again, like I said, this is going to be more of a philosophical episode where I'm just pondering certain things about lives and, hopefully you get you guys thinking as well. And if you do listen to this episode and you have some thoughts as well, I would definitely like to hear what you guys have to say, because I think it's a very, very interesting topic. So essentially, my theory is that we don't actually ever leave a program. This idea of trying to leave a program can never work, because I think of it this way. If we leave something, that means we become nothing, or we go into nothing, and nothing does not exist. Everything that exists, right? So if we automatically say that I'm removing this programming of let's say self-worth, right? I'm removing this programming of self-worth, and I am no longer part of this programming. Well, by default, you actually end up being part of another program. And because you can't remove the idea of self-worth, if that makes sense. Like it's there. It's a fundamental thing that we all have. However, what you can do is remove the way you view that program, right? So I think of it like either two sides of a coin or on a spectrum, things like that, where on one side, you've got the idea of not feeling worthy. So a lack of self-worth, or well, really and truly, you don't lack self-worth. You're actually abundant in the thinking that you are not worthy. So we can never really lack something, because again, that lack symbolizes that thing isn't there, or it doesn't exist. It's no thing. And again, no thing cannot be no thing. Like it like the fact that it doesn't exist is not possible, because if it doesn't exist, then we wouldn't know that it doesn't exist, if that makes sense. So essentially, what it looks like is it's an abundance of us thinking that we are not worthy. That's what it truly looks like, right? So that lack that we're feeling is actually an abundance of something else, an abundance of a different program. And this program is the counter opposite of feeling worthy. So when we feel worthy, we are buying into the program of worth. We are buying into the program of, of this feeling. And so when we quote unquote say we feel unworthy, then that means that we are now buying into a different program. We're buying into the program that says we don't feel worthy, essentially, or and so again, so what I mean by buying into that program is when you buy something, you have it. It's an abundance of something. So we are always buying something, right? We're buying and selling. That's how this currency works. So when I sell something, in exchange, I buy something else, and I become more abundant in whatever it is that I'm choosing to buy. So therefore, if I am buying this idea that I am not worthy, then I have become abundant in the idea that I am not worthy. Does that make sense? I really hope you guys are following me. And so again, when we choose to quote unquote remove, we're not necessarily removing, but I would just say remove ourselves from this idea of not being worthy. What we are literally doing is we are selling this idea that we are not worthy back into the universe, and in exchange, we're buying the idea that we are worthy. So with that being said, I believe that we actually never leave a program. We are always in a program. And if we want to take another example, just so that maybe it's more clear and it makes more sense, take the idea of religion, right? Religion is such a complex topic, and hopefully one day I'll get the chance to actually do an episode about it, because it is a hefty topic. But for the basics, say you are part of a religion, right? Whatever religion it may be. Now, you decide that you no longer want to be part of that religion. The moment you make that decision, you have sold the idea of this religion. So you are now selling it away back into the universe. You are selling away the ideas that came with this religion, the programmings, the indoctrination, or whatever it may be that was a part of this religion. You are selling it back into the universe, or back to whoever, right? And in exchange, you're actually buying a new program. And that program is a program that could look different for so many people, because again, religion is so complex. So maybe it looks in a way that you don't believe in aspects of what a certain book is talking about, but you actually believe a different idea or something along the lines, or something similar, or whatever it be. Like, again, like I said, religion is so complex, so it will be hard to pinpoint a specific example. But the idea is, people that think that they've left the religion and that they're part of no religion, technically you are still part of something, right? You didn't actually fully leave. So when we look at people who are atheists and they say that they don't believe in God, and they're not religious, in a way, all you've done is that you are on the opposite spectrum of those that do believe in religion. And the opposite spectrum is still a belief, because the fact that you say you don't believe in God says that you believe in the idea that there is no God. That is what you're saying. So that belief in the idea that there is no God is still a belief, and it's still a program. Does that make sense? Because programs basically are the things that make us act a certain way. Whenever I think of programs, I think of a computer, right? When you program a computer to do something, that computer will work in a certain way because of the programming that you have set for that computer. If you now approach the computer and set a new set of programs, it will behave differently. So we are all programmed to behave in a certain way. And when we do, everything around us is a domino effect. So everything around us will act and behave in correlation to the programming that we are under, or that we are a part of. So, with all of that being said, if we are all part of programs, it then means that we can actually shift the program that we want to be of. And what being woke or what or if we start awakening on this, let's say, spiritual journey, what that actually looks like is, it comes with the understanding that we are leaving one program into another program. So I don't know if whoever's listening to this, if you've ever heard some things from the spiritual community talking about how we're in the 3D and we're moving on to the 5D. That in itself is a program where we are leaving the 3D program and we are moving into the 5D program. And on one of my episodes, I did also talk about the mind, body, and soul, and how each one is like the 3D, the 4D, and the 5D. And in itself, that is complex because of the type of what we're buying into, right, in terms of the programs. But anyways, moving on. With all of that being said, we are all part of a program. So then what does this mean for us, right? It means that as we are waking up, being woke, or waking up, as we are coming to the realization that there is more to this life, it means that we have the opportunity to choose the program that we want to be a part of. And it means that we could be more conscious and more aware of what it is that we want to do. So this idea of I guess, maybe should we say enlightenment, this idea of enlightenment, of becoming nothing and shedding everything and letting go of the ego, I do get it, and I understand it, that it's like we're becoming nothing per se, but at the same time we're becoming everything. So with that, it's the awareness that we actually can choose the programming that we want to. So if there is something that is holding us down, we can become liberated and we can free ourselves from the way that a program was affecting us and affecting our lives. However, we won't know how that program is affecting us until we decide to wake up, or until we decide to be aware of what's going on and look at the bigger picture, look at our surroundings, and look at everything that is happening, to know whether or not this program is affecting us in a positive way or maybe in a not so positive way. And so every program lies on a spectrum of, let's say, 0 to 100, right? Or 0 to 1. Whatever metric system that you want to use, everything lies on that spectrum. And so we can decide which side of the spectrum that we want to be on. But to take it a step further, we can even say that actually, when we think about it, when I remove myself from one program, it doesn't necessarily mean that I've removed all of myself from that program. So if you think of, like, say, stocks and shares, you know, buying and selling. If you were to buy one stock and then a future down the line in the future, you decide that you want to sell that stock, you may not sell all of the stock, or you may not sell all of your shares if you got shares in like a company or in something, right? You may not sell all of your shares. So what happens is you may decide that you only want to sell 70% of this, right? And in exchange, you gain 70% of something else. Right? So going back to the idea of feeling worthy and whatnot, say you are someone that you grew up in and you were part of this program of not feeling worthy. You felt unworthy. And so it meant that you acted a certain way. You let people walk all over you. You were a people pleaser. Whatever the case may be, you didn't stand your ground, didn't have a voice, because you didn't feel like you were good enough to be able to have anything. Say that that's how you were. You know, you were 90% of that. And then there was 10% of you, 10% of your stock that said that, you know, you are a little bit worthy. And on rare occasional days where things were positive and things were great, you actually felt that worth. And so what happened was that day you felt great because you 10% of you was bought into the idea of feeling worthy or being abundant of worth, right? And the other 90% was you being abundant of not worth, right? So now say you've got all of that. As you grow up, or as you become aware that actually most of your life you've been spending it not feeling worthy. You've been spending, again, that currency, that buying and selling currency of you're buying into the idea of you not being worthy. So you're abundant of that not worth. And so you've been spending your time in a way where it correlates to this idea of abundance of not being in worth. I know, mouthful. So the moment you become aware of that is the moment that you now can decide, do I want to keep renewing my subscription? Do I want to keep buying into this stock, into this company, into this share, into this idea of not being worthy? Do I want to keep buying into that and keep living my life in correlation to that? Or do I want to buy something else? And the moment you decide that you want to buy something else, you begin to release this idea or the abundance of not feeling worthy. But it doesn't mean all of it goes at once. Depending on the individual, some people are different. Maybe you you're very driven, right? And so you're very driven to get rid of all of your stock in not feeling worthy. you could be very driven and you can do that hard reset and you can sell all of it, right? The moment you sell all of it, you now have an abundance, 100% stock of feeling worthy. And that's great, right? But here's the thing. You can always buy and sell. So just because you buy into the idea of feeling 100% worthy doesn't mean you will stay with that idea of feeling 100% worthy if you don't renew the subscription, right? So what may happen is, people have that hard reset. They buy the 100% subscription and things are great and they're feeling worthy. They're on top of the world and whatnot. But then they encounter somebody else, or they encounter something else, or they encounter a type of situation. And that situation leads them to actually sell some of the currency of feeling worthy and buy back the currency of feeling unworthy. Right? Meaning what we have to be cautious of is what currency are we buying in the moment? Every interaction that we have with ourselves or with other people, every thought, every thing that we do, every action that we make, right, is a constant selling or buying of a currency of feeling worthy or not feeling worthy. For example, using that analogy or using this as an example, right? Every day is a constant buying and selling. So what I'm trying to say is, with all of this, I think that it's not always this or that. In fact, life is this and that, and you can actually feel worthy and unworthy at the same time. Of course, each one may show up and manifest itself in a different way, as in it may manifest itself depending on the situation that you're in. So maybe whenever you go around certain people, certain situations, you temporarily sell the idea of feeling worthy and buy the idea of not feeling worthy. You could buy it from there. And this buying and selling is a form of energy. So when you're around someone and you're around their energy, you're actually buying this currency of feeling not worthy, because whenever you're around them, they take from you. They take your worth. Ooh, sorry. I'm just here talking and things are just flowing to me and I'm like, whoa, okay. We are spitting. No, stop. Seriously, maybe you go around somebody, right? And all of a sudden you feel not worthy, because what's happening is they are either forcibly taking, actually, no, not forcibly. No one can forcibly take anything from you. You have to be in participation for that thing to be taken. But the reason why it may seem forcibly is if you are not aware that you are giving your energy away. So it may seem like they're taken from you, but really and truly what it is that you are giving it to them. You are always given and taken in the sense that someone has presented an offer and said, here, take. And then you decide if you want that offer, so you take it from them. And so this is what is always happening. But of course, it's not that long of a process. It's actually quite instant, right? And what happens is some people don't know they're doing it. So it actually is a subconscious programming that's running in the background that you are not aware of until you decide to delve deep into that programming and change aspects of it, so that next time when it's running on autopilot, it actually behaves and acts a different way. So going back to that person, if you are around someone who is taking your energy, it's actually you being part of that transaction. You are always part of the transaction, and you are always deciding whether or not you give your energy to someone. So now say that you decided not to give your energy to that person, or not to give your self-worth to that person, and you actually held your currency and held your chips to you, then it means that you are no longer accessible to that person. Does that make sense? You have put up a wall or a boundary or aspects of you that says, no, I will no longer give you my energy. Now, different people will make us feel and act a certain way and act differently depending on who they are and how they affect us, right? How much how much stake we give them into our life, like how much power we choose to give them, essentially, right? So essentially, if you give that person a lot of power, then it may mean that you need to physically stop seeing that person, at least for stage 1, to help you find ways to hold on to your energy. But again, as we know, energy, we don't actually have to be physically in the room with someone for someone to siphon our energy. We could be in a whole completely different country and someone could still be siphoning our energy, because energy isn't a physical solid matter the way that our bodies are. Energy is well, infinite. Some people are still trying to figure out what energy fully is, right? And how it travels within space, within the air, within all around us. Like, how does that energy fully work? But essentially, it's said that like energy is instant. So there could be two particles that are interacting with one another from different sides of the world, right? So if that's the case, then it means that the people who are around you, who are still they are still taking your energy until you decide that you no longer want to be part of that transaction. And they are taking your energy, and it could be from your thoughts, you thinking about them, or they thinking about you, or you feeding into that idea. There's so many ways that it can happen. And so what happens is you're still having that transaction. But I always talk about awareness, because awareness is the key step to being able to actually do something about anything. So if you are aware that this is what's happening, you can now find ways to build up your self-worth, and the more you build up your self-worth, again, like I said, you naturally let go of the idea of not feeling worthy. Because we are always buying into two programs, and sometimes we are always part of both programs, and it depends on the situation that brings out each program. So you might be abundance 70% of feeling worthy, and then 30% of not feeling worthy. And so when you go around someone, that could stay the same, or it could change, and the numbers fluctuate, right? So this is a very complex topic, but I think it's so interesting to talk about, because then it makes us realize that actually in the moment we get to choose which programs that we want to be a part of. And self-worth is just one of those programs, and it's the one that I just wanted to talk on, but it could be anything. So let's say another one is fear. We have to first identify what is the opposite of fear. The opposite of fear, right, is love. And the reason why the opposite of fear is love is because to be fair, in my opinion, all good feelings that we feel is the opposite of fear, because everything that we do stems from fear. All of the other emotions, guilt, shame, what else is there? Jealousy, envy. In my opinion, I think that they all stem from fear. And so if you work on that, then you get the opposite, which is love and joy and compassion and peace and whatnot. And so those are, from the way I look at it, those are the opposite. So let's say you take fear. You are abundant in fear. Everything cripples you. You get anxiety, or maybe you get depression, or maybe you feel jealous. Again, you feel not worthy. You feel anxious, whatever the case may be, right? It all comes from this idea that you're buying into the program of fear. And that's what many people are bought into. A lot of these other topics stem from fear. When we feel fearful, we act in a certain way that aligns with that fear, right? So what happens is, when we have an abundance of fear, there is a decrease or a limited amount of love that we can have. And so we have to first sell the stock or the share of fear in order to buy the stock and the share of love. And I think when we look around us today in our society, the reason why it may seem like it's a loveless society is because many people are bought into the idea of fear. And it's not to say that there aren't some people who are loving. Of course there are. And it's not to say that the people who are fearful also aren't loving. Again, like I said, you can buy into two programs at once. So for some people, it may be 70 to 30, maybe 60 to 40. It may be 20 to 80. Whatever the case may be, it may be 10 to 90. Whatever it is, there is percentages. There's a spectrum. There's a scale, right? And so when we buy into one thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have the other thing in our inventory. It just means that we maybe have a low stock of that thing. That's all it is. So when you see some people who are still loving to one another, in that moment, they decide to sell the currency of fear and instead buy love. Or they may be around people who trigger them into being more loving, right? And trigger doesn't necessarily have to be a bad connotation. Trigger just means sparking or just pushing the first domino, and then everything else falls. So you can push the first one into something good, or you can push it into something bad. So when you're triggered, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're triggered into negative things. I know we have taken that word triggered and we've made it this negative connotation, that you triggered me and that automatically means that you did something negative to me. No, not necessarily. When we triggered someone, you could be around someone that triggers you to be a better person, to actually sell the currency of fear, even if it's momentarily, even if it's temporary. Sell the idea of fear, sell the abundance of fear, and actually instead buy the abundance of love. And so that's why when you're around them, you can't help but feel, loving towards them or joyful or whatever the case may be. However, if you're around other people, they may trigger you to be in fear. So again, you sell your idea of love and you buy back this currency of fear. I hope all of this is making sense, especially with examples that I'm giving. This is just my thoughts, and it's just when I look at it, to me anyway, it makes sense. Because I think that we are always part of something. I think that it's always this and that, not this or that. We've been fed, even that in itself is the programming of this or that. And so for me anyway, I have released that programming of this or that, and I believe that I'm now in the programming of this and that. However, it doesn't mean that if a different situation arises, I may need the programming or the idea of this or that. Do you know what I mean? It's complex, and life is complex, and I think that's the beauty of it. And we can't just try and simplify everything, because when we try and simplify or oversimplify everything, then we actually miss out on certain other things. Life is too complex, and I guess that's why, again, like I said, this is more of a philosophical episode to get you thinking, to get you pondering, right? Yeah, and so I would like to know your thoughts on this, and to tell me what you think. I think there's so much more as well, because then it makes you think about how it is that we as people, how we respond to certain things. And so as well, even looking at like how the person was talking about the soft programming, how there are some soft programmings that makes you think that, oh, I'm fully healed, right? Or, oh, I'm better than this person because I'm not part of a religion, or I'm not part of this, and so that makes me better. Even these soft programmings, what it means is that we are buying the currency of whatever that thing is, and we're selling the currency of its opposite. Right? And what actually just came to me was the quote of everything has an equal and opposite reaction. Right? So whatever we're doing, there is the reaction of the other thing. Yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, I think that's it. And so this is what I'm going to leave you with. If you are on your awakening journey, even that word, I don't even know if that's even the right word. But anyways, if you are on this journey of realization, I actually like that better. Realizing things, being more aware of things. If you are on that journey, just know that what happens is things get more complex. Things get more complicated. If we are unconscious, then we are running on whatever programmings was that society or our parents or whoever has instilled within us. And that is the programming that we are running on. That's like the default baseline thing. And so the moment you start to realize and the moment you start to become aware of things, you have the ability to change how you view life or how you view yourself and which programmings that you choose to buy into. And remember that really and truly, whenever you leave a program, you never really leave a program. You just buy into another program. And sometimes you can actually be in both programs at once. And so it just depends on you and how you want to live your life. Sometimes you can be 50-50. Sometimes it's, like I said, 60-40, 70-30, 20-80, 10-90. Like, whatever the case is, you can choose how much of something that you want to buy into, but know that you are always buying into something. So look at the things, look at your inventory, take stock, take note of all of the things that you are bought into, and then decide whether or not this is what you want to buy, what you want to continue buy into. And I guess the next thing that people may ask me is, okay, cool. I've taken stock of the fact that I don't feel worthy. I've taken stock of the fact that, this religion is so and so. I've taken stock of the fact that I'm part of I'm this highly educated person, and or I live in this environment, or I have this social state. I've taken stock of all of those things. What do I do with them now? And I say, well, it goes deeper. It goes into knowing how that program was there, who instilled that program. Was it you or somebody else? Well, it's still always, ultimately, I think it's still always you. I just think that it's what you accepted from somebody else. Again, nothing can ever happen if you don't let it happen. There are people who are always interacting with us and doing their thing. However, if you give them permission, you give them that permission slip to put something on you, then technically, yes, they did it, but at the same time, you accepted it and you left it there. So you are still as part of it. So people who are always, now this, I feel like I'm going off into something else now, but people who are always complaining or blaming other people and saying it's your fault that you did this, it's your fault that you're like this. It's like, really and truly, you had the ability to be part of it as well. You were part of everything that happened. And we I want to say anyway that we're all probably guilty of it. Even myself, I know that there are times where, when someone's done something to me, I've said that because of how you acted, it made me act a certain way and you triggered me. And whilst that is valid, it is 100% valid, I have to recognize that I participated in letting that person trigger me. Now, it's not always easy. I'm not saying that. And I'm also not saying it's your fault. It's not necessarily anybody's fault. But all it symbolizes or all it highlights, should I say, is it highlights the fact that there's still a programming that's running underneath for you to still give your power to that person. And the moment you figure out what that programming is and you unplug from it, that's when you can now buy a different programming and actually realize that this person doesn't have to trigger you if you don't want them to. So this person doesn't have to make you go back to a default setting if you don't want them to. You can actually rewrite the program and change the default setting into something else so that you don't act a certain way, so that when things are running, on autopilot, as I mentioned earlier, it will run in a new way that will make sense, or that will be more favorable to you, right? So if you're someone that is still complaining and saying that it's everybody else's fault, and you're pointing fingers at everybody else but yourself, then it shows that you have not come to the realization that you are participating within whatever it is that you are a part of. It shows that, the opposite of awake is that you're still asleep, or you're still plugged in to the program of the matrix. You're still plugged in into this idea that that it's not your fault. And that shows that you're not aware yet. You're not aware of yourself yet. Right? And word of note, or, is that when we do become aware, don't expect it all to happen overnight. But you being aware is the first step. So there may be times where you go back to certain people and you get triggered by them. They are just mirroring and reflecting this idea that you're still part of a program that you need to release. So you have two choices. Don't be around them anymore, as a way to start not being a part of that program. But just know that that doesn't necessarily fix the program or put you in another program. It just means that you've kind of pushed them to the side. But going in, going deep, going down into yourself, and this can look like how people say journaling or meditating or speaking to somebody else or just pondering. For me, a lot of things that I find or start to be aware of comes from the fact that half the time I just sit and I just think and I just ponder, and these things just flow to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, so this is why I'm acting this way, and this is why I'm I behave like this, and this is the program that I've bought into. Okay, cool. What led this program to be there? Let's dive deeper to actually get to the core, to the root of whatever it is that is causing us to behave and act a certain way. And so your level of awareness is what is going to help you understand who you are and understand things about this matrix, this world, this universe, whatever you want to call it, really. And again, encouragement. I keep saying it, but it won't happen overnight. You won't just clearly remove or sell all your stocks and sell all your shares overnight. But by thinking about it, being aware, pondering, meditating, all of these things, it will gradually and eventually it will happen. And so overall, to conclude, I guess, this episode, it's just to let you know that we are always part of a program. At least that's the way I look at it. Again, this is all theoretical. And if it is the case that we are always part of a program, then there is hope, because you don't have to buy into the program of anxiety or the program of depression or the program of lack of self-worth or the program of feeling unworthy or the program of fear, program of envy, program of anger, program of all of the negative things that make you feel less than or make you feel uneasy, unhappy, whatever it is. You don't have to buy into those programs. You can eventually move yourself to the opposite counterpart, to the program of peace and compassion and joy and happiness and love and eventually enlightenment, understanding all of these things and understanding that all of these things play a part in the bigger scheme, in the bigger picture, right? So, yeah, I hope this episode got you thinking. It definitely got me thinking. Um, and I think it's very interesting. So, yeah, if you listen to this, let me know how you found it. Let me know if you would like more things like this, more philosophical and complex thoughts and ideas and theories. It was definitely fun for me to talk about it. So, yeah, guys, I think that's everything that I have to say, at least for now. Yeah, I'll end it there. I hope you guys enjoy this episode, and definitely share it with someone, give it a like, and yeah, let me know how you found it. So, guys, until I see you next, or at least you hear from me next, stay blessed, don't stress, and I will catch you after the test. Bye.